Major funding for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Well, as we approach spring and look for more signs of forward economic momentum, one of the truly positive, unexpected benefits of this Great Recession past and now our subsequent glaringly slow recovery has been forcing many people and organizations to reassess priorities. Priorities like career, like the environment, like our social responsibility to one another and our broader community. Welcome again to the most widely watched and widely sought-out source for Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and on this edition, we will discuss that space between a full recovery and just getting there. And later on, Rebecca Darwin from Garden and Gun magazine.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, health care, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising health care costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded March 2nd, 2012. On this week's program, Tom Okel of Catawba Lands Conservancy, Dr. Allan Louden of Wake Forest University, and special guest Rebecca Darwin, President and CEO of Garden and Gun magazine. Now, Chris William.
Hello, welcome again to our program. Tom, Al, welcome to the broadcast and to the dialogue. All right, Tom, Catawba Lands Conservancy. I'm assuming that you guys care a little bit about conservation, about environment, about the social aspect of it all. When you hear some of the political dialogue, and I'm not asking you to wade in on whether you're an R or a D or how you guys come down, but when you hear about what's going on in this election cycle, are you encouraged that this is an opportunity for those that believe we're not as sensitive as we should be about conservation and about the environment?
It's always encouraging to hear the dialogue. Whether to say I'm encouraged about the process that's going to come out of the dialogue, it's hard to say. But you know, we're really, as a conservation and a local conservation entity, we're really concerned about two things. One is from a budget standpoint that there are resources that are directed to help people that want to conserve land voluntarily to do that, and then for the tax treatment that allows people to do that. So there have been 4 state conservation trust funds that have driven a lot of activity. The main one that has been imperative for us is the Clean Water Management Trust Fund. And just given the state of the budget, that has gone down tremendously. It was.
And I'm sorry, Tom, but you're talking specifically in North Carolina, the Clean Water Management Trust Fund.
Correct.
Now, and here is a trust fund, since you bring that up, seems kind of unique that you bring that up, and North Carolina has basically rated that and used that as a line of credit or at least a bank to plug some of these budgetary holes. So when you watch that, it's got to be discouraging, not to be leading here, but it's got to be discouraging.
It's challenging. It's gone from about $100 million in 2008, it went down to 50, and then the last year it's been at 11. And that's to fund a lot of projects, a lot of great conservation projects, as well as sewer and stormwater projects. And that's just a budget line item where they appropriate an amount out of the budget to the trust fund every year. The Natural Heritage Trust Fund, as well as the Parks and Rec Trust Fund, were actually rated where they came and took money that had been allocated out of those that comes from other sources to help fill other holes in the budget.
You know, Al, let's bring you into this.
Okay.
I got to think that, you know, you watched a little bit about politics, and not just the science of politics, but the communication of politics. And when you hear Tom talk and you think about conservation efforts and environmental efforts, and I'm sorry, Tom, this is not completely intentional, but the Birkenstock crowd and the, you know, the tie-dye crowd, are they getting lost in the fact that budgets are tight and folks are just trying to battle for education? What happens to a message of a conservation and environment in this market?
Sometimes those make the political agenda, and sometimes you have the dialogue, as you were talking about, Tom. But I haven't heard it this cycle. We're more worried about jobs, or we're more worried about scoring political points. And I've seen very little discussion in a political sense in the environmental realm. The difficulty for groups that really are working in the environment in a nonpartisan way, which you folks do, is it never is nonpartisan once it touches politics. And so you said the Birkenstock crowd, et cetera, you start getting basically a shouting match, which is amplified by the way we carry news these days.
Oh, yeah. Boy. We're going to get a chance to wade into the media part of that in just a second. So getting back to you, Tom, how do you take advantage? I mean, what are the resources? How do you make sure that you guys still have a seat at the table when it comes to conservation? And how do you make it a priority and important for a community like Charlotte or Charleston or Asheville?
Right. Well, first, just to be clear, we are a conservation entity. And our mission overlaps with the environmental movement, but we're very, very different from a pure environmental organization. We're concerned about helping communities and private landowners conserve land for the public good. And that's very much part of economic development and a planning effort for a community. We sometimes get painted with the brush of a lot of other environmental issues that we have supporters that have totally opposite views of that. But our focus as an entity is on the conservation movement. And again, a lot of overlap, but different. And it's just getting our message out there, and it's having people understand what we do, why it's important. And in these times when budgets are tough, the economy is tough, we still have to think about the future and how are the things that we're doing today with our land affecting what's going to be left in 20 years for our kids and their kids.
So Allan, to bring you back into it, as you hear Tom talk about here, is it just that they need a louder voice?
It's possible you need not much of a voice in this, because it's possible that this gets politicized. It actually hurts your work. And I would think that this discussion goes on in the sense that we are all for conservation in a Teddy Roosevelt sense, might be a popular thing. And so in that sense, if it's sort of below the radar, in a political sense, it may work for your organization, but not work for an environmentalist organization which wants to politicize it. So it's kind of it's a mixed blessing of whether you want too much discussion because it gets perverted a little bit.
So I mean, gosh, in an election,
but talking about it here is a different thing, because this is actually talking about it, and Tom can make his case. That part of the public dialogue is probably, I assume, welcome.
Well, but how can you not have a dialogue certainly in a swing state like North Carolina, when they say, well, it is a swing state. It's clearly going to be the center of the political universe, at least when it comes to the Democrats this year. How can you not have a dialogue? And Tom, we're not talking about you in the third party about it, but conservationists or the social softness that maybe we need to feel. How does that not turn into a polarizing political issue in a year like this year?
Well, it can very easily if one of the sides decides it ought to. But it seems like it's nobody's benefit right now.
Is that a mistake?
Well, it will become a political issue when the politicians see it as an advantage. So I suspect it's a political issue in terms of turnout for both Republicans and Democrats in the fall election here in November. But right now it doesn't. It just raises more red flags than it answers. And so let's stay on jobs, taxes, less government. And it's hard to say how this is going to play out. It's pretty clear from the travel patterns that a lot of people, internal polling must say North Carolina is in play. You can tell just by people showing up every so often, right? That's the guess. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but that probably needs to be for it to be electoral majority for anybody.
In the last 60 seconds here, Tom, let me come back to you and let's talk about this for a second. The Carolina Thread Trail, Catawba Lands Conservancy. This would seem like a Lands Conservancy Institute has an opportunity to acquire land at a cheaper price than you have in the last 20 years. Is that the
Absolutely.
case, or is it about raising the funds to get the land or to talk people into gifting a land?
It's all of the above, but it is the best of times to do what we do in terms of land prices, and we're probably a once-in-a-generation opportunity for land conservation, and to just development has slowed down, and so for people to just be thoughtful about the decisions they're making around land, and people are open to a lot more options than they are in the hottest part of the market. So it's a great opportunity. And the Carolina Thread Trail is a project that we didn't conceive, but it was put with us after a group of regional leaders came up with it. And it's a fabulous project for conservation.
Is it a unique project for conservation that's unique in the Carolinas, or is this repeated?
It's been repeated through the country, but I think we're viewed as one of the model projects, and we're seeing people come and look at us and what we've done to replicate it elsewhere, because you have 15 counties where at this point 12 of those have all accepted saying we want this, and this is done at the most local level. The people, the governments all have to say we want to do this. We want trails, greenways, blueways. We want to connect. And at the end of it, you have 72 governments at this stage that have all agreed this is a project that we want. And so when you talk about how we get our word out there, this is a great project because it's a blueprint for conservation that's going to be in place for decades, because they've all accepted it. We do have to put the puzzle together of getting the land, getting the funding, but at the end you will have preserved property through the whole region. It's going to be a signature asset that the whole region's going to be able to enjoy forever.
And it's important to know, just for the record, the region is the Charlotte region that this is all happening.
It's a 15-county region.
In
so
and
it
around
goes
Charlotte?
down to South Carolina. It goes out to Stanley County, Cherokee County, up into Catawba County.
I wish we had more time to talk about that, but thank you.
I'll come back.
Stay with us, because we're going to have, of course, more dialogue going on. Next week on the program, his name is Harris DeLoach. He's been on this program before. He's the chairman and the CEO of Sunoco out of Hartsville, South Carolina. And then in 2 weeks, she is effectively the chief financial officer for the state of North Carolina. Her name is Janet Cowell, and she also has been here. Secretary, or rather the treasurer for North Carolina, Janet Cowell, will be here. You know, every once in a while, something comes along that's just kind of cool. Who would have thought that putting together the genre of gardens and guns would work, except maybe somebody from the South? That's what I love about it. Joining us now is a lady who, among other accomplishments, was the first female publisher of the New Yorker magazine, now is president and chief executive of the Charleston-based, just Charleston-based, but national pub monthly magazine, Garden and Gun. Rebecca Darwin, welcome home, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. You know, I know you've answered this 1,001 times since 2007, but where did that name come from?
Well, first let me say, we always say if you put S's on the end of either of those words, gardens or guns, in the title, we are somewhat about gardens and guns, but you don't quite get it. But the title came, there was a club in Charleston in the late 70s and early 80s called the Garden and Gun Club, and that's where that combination of those two words first appeared. And as we thought about a magazine about the South and really entrenched in the land and the sporting life, it seemed like an appropriate name. So I could hear it and see it, visualize it, and knew that I was going to get a little flack along the way about it, but it's turned out to be a great thing.
Now, is the attitude of it, is this a kind of poking a finger in the eye of but making fun of, but still yet embracing what kind of the South and the Low Country and the attitude of Southern living is?
No, we're really a very different magazine than Southern Living.
And I don't mean Southern Living, I'm sorry. Not Southern Living, but Southern Living, not the magazine.
My brain is
I understand.
focused on magazines. You know, the magazine is very much based in the traditions of the Old South, but we are about the New South. And so not poking fun, but showing that, you know, the traditions that we have had still, you know, they play very well, and that it really has always been, I think, about the land in the South, the love of the land.
Mm-hmm. No politics, no SEC, and what was the other thing?
No religion.
And no religion. I mean, that's completely off limits.
Off the record. Although we do occasionally on our Facebook page put up a little question about SEC football or, you know, basketball questions. Get lots of response to that.
You don't get any flack from the ACC folks about that?
Oh, well, we do that too.
Okay. Tom, question?
Sure. So given your footprint is the South in terms of your focus with the national readership, where do you see the general sentiment amongst your readers and amongst the stories you do about people in these areas around conservation?
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It is about people. We generally write about people or experiences. And as I said earlier, when I thought about this magazine, the real heart of the magazine was the land. And so I think you see woven throughout every issue of the magazine, not a direct coverage of conservation all the time, but that is a kind of an underlying theme of almost everything that we do, from food to art to culture to design to literature. I mean, all of those things. It's really, really at the heart of everything that we do. We are, interestingly, celebrating our 5th anniversary this spring, and our next issue that will be out at the end of this month is our anniversary issue, and really does go back to the land in a big way. Ted Turner will be on the cover, and he's quite a landowner. And we are highlighting 10 conservationists that we've selected as people that we think are of merit.
National conservationists or regional?
From the region,
okay.
From the region.
Okay.
But, the magazine is, just to clarify, and I think, everybody here does understand that, but the magazine is about the South, but it's a magazine that has a very broad appeal. In fact, 45% of our circulation is outside of the Southeast. Mm-hmm. And we are constantly getting more and more states that want to be part of this. In fact, yesterday I got an appeal from Oklahoma. So.
Well, that would seem to fit. There's a certain symmetry to that.
I think it may happen.
Allan?
You skew politics, and so I looked at some articles that are arguably political, but they're really not. They're more profile pieces. But if you are the Old South, which for everybody's political, and the New South, which is a rejection of that, how can you do both those things? Isn't everything political? Isn't all magazines political?
Oh, I'm sure you can read some things into it, but I don't think that's not really not what we are here for. But I do think I think there are a number of things that we probably impact. With coverage of food and the focus on Southern food right now, I think that probably there is. I'm hoping that we are helping, along with the conversation of people thinking more locally and buying locally. I do believe the conservation, returning to indigenous plants and those kind of things. So I think that we definitely have an impact with that.
Can you take that a little bit farther? What do you see as the place for specialty magazines, specialty publications, to influence public policy without being political?
Well, the magazines that are kind of hot right now are niche magazines. So, I think in contrast to either a news publication or, let's say, my former employer, the New Yorker magazine, it isn't what we do. And those magazines clearly, I do think, have a direct impact on public policy. But I think that what we are trying to do is present the best of the South, and so I think in that way we hopefully are helping to improve mm-hmm. things here in the South mm-hmm. and the image of the South. Mm-hmm.
So.
You mentioned the local food movement, mm-hmm. and obviously farming is a big part of the heritage of the South. And we're very focused on that, and farming is a way of life and sustaining local rural economies. North Carolina's lost 6,000 farms since '02, more than any other wow. state in the mm-hmm. country. So it's something at the Conservancy that we spend a lot of time looking at how can we address that. Do you think this local food, farm-to-fork movement is sort of a fad, or is it a trend that's here to stay, and how do you see that affecting the local farms' right. sustainability?
Well, I hope it's a trend that's here to stay. I think for some people it never really did go away. I grew up in South Carolina, but my family was from North Carolina and had tobacco farms in North Carolina. So I know about farming and when we would go to my grandmother's house, we had the eggs from the chickens outside and the food was grown. It still is. And so I'm hoping it's not a fad. I think that people, part of all the health consciousness that is going on too, that I'm hoping it'll stick.
And my 5-year-old's still trying to figure out where they grow chicken nuggets. by the way. He actually said that. I'm sorry, I was just thinking of that. Got off on that. Talk about farming.
Well, I actually grew up in what would now be a niche farm, but when I grew up, it wasn't. It was a mainstay farm, and so I know where the nuggets don't come from. Magazines tend to go away, as do network television, because of the niche markets and going to particular audiences. And what that's meant in television is that the network, the 24/7s, own the politics now, and the politicians are at their service, and they're beating them up bad.
Right.
Because that's good TV. Do you think magazines, when they get into a niche way, start doing a similar kind of thing? Do they, like, disintegrate the populace? Because you're kind of bringing people together in an identity.
Right.
But they don't all do that. And you know the magazine world better than I do.
Are they doing that? I don't know. I mean, again, we are pretty unique, and we are much like an old-fashioned magazine, which is why I think that we are being successful. But I do think that the media has become so, there are just so many options out there, and we all only have so much time. And so I think that good things do ultimately rise to the top. I mean, of course, magazine publishing had some of its worst years a couple of years ago, and we launched the magazine right before that. In hindsight, would not have done that. Although, yes, I would have done it. But I think that, like anything, and being a Darwin, I guess I believe in survival of the fittest. So I think that if you're delivering information and entertainment and something that people want, then you're going to survive. If you're not, then the market is very crowded. There are only so many hours people can read or watch or be on their computers or their e-readers or whatever. And there's only so much advertising dollars out there to support it.
So it's really this whole media thought for just a second here, Rebecca. We've got is the media the way it is now? And I know that's a very broad statement to say the media, but we've got aggregators of information, you've got originators like Garden and Gun, you've got blogs, you've got tweets, you got instant messages that also have ads embedded in them. I guess the question is this a sustainable model that we have so much inventory for places to put ads, but the ads have come down in price, so now we've got even more ads out there? I mean, I guess so. Are you playing the anti-media card by having what you called an old-fashioned magazine?
What we're providing is a very targeted audience, and so we reach a group of people that you really can't reach a lot of other ways. And so, is it anti-media? No, but I think it's smart marketing. I mean, it is, and it appeals to people. One of the things about Garden and Gun is that these people probably do read other magazines, watch other television, do all kinds of things. But most of those magazines, if you think about it, really focus on what's going on in the Northeast and what's going on in the on the West Coast. There's so much of the focus of the media is on that. And I think we bring a fresh perspective to that we are, we're really covering kind of, more the heart of what's going on in this country. And so, and we do also, we have a very affluent readership of this magazine, but we cover the high and the low. I mean, we will have the, little barbecue stand in the middle of nowhere, and then we'll have the most fabulous restaurant in Charlotte, but so I think that we've just found a really sweet spot. Again, I think that media will sort out. Not everybody is going to make it. We can't always, although I'm not sure, it seems like there are a lot of people coming along now that all they do is, they're reading or they're doing something all the time, not doing a lot of talking.
So, and we got a minute left, and I want to stay with this for just a second. So do you look over your shoulder and you say, okay, somebody's going to figure out what we're doing and maybe start to nick away at our demographic base?
Well, there are people that are copying us already. Some very, very big, popular national magazines are copying us.
Does it scare you that they might have the capital behind them?
No, because we'll stay a step ahead. And what I'm trying to do with Garden and Gun, the core is a magazine and the core is the content, but it's really a brand and it's really a lifestyle. And so a lot of the things that I'm thinking about are beyond the world of media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very aware that other people are out there, but We're good. We won a National Magazine Award for General Excellence last year, which is like best picture in our world.
Congratulations. I wish you had more time. And Garden and Gun, I'm not going to ask you what kind of weapon you carry, because that probably wouldn't be fair either. But nice to have you on the program.
Thank you so
Good
much.
luck to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Al, please come back as well, Tom.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you here. Until next week, I'm Chris William. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.